pivotal, I think. Could have been pivotal until the end, until that late goal for the race to the Champions League places. Manchester City against Aston Villa. Late heroics from Mateus Nunes, the midfielder impersonating a right back.
Yeah, who Pep said he could become a really good right back if he wanted to, I guess, because Pep really believes he's got the ability, physicality, etc. to be good there. I mean, I'm still not convinced, but Doku making that goal, Pep saying that he's the best in the world over 5 meters. It's a shame that the pitch is then so much bigger than 5 meters, obviously. But on that one, well done to Doku for really cooking Axel Disasi. And why is Axel Disasi playing right back in this Aston Villa team is beyond me. I know
you go Matty Cash?
No, I mean, Konsa is the best pick here. I think he's even better than Cash. But certainly if you make a change halfway through the game, don't put Disasi there. Put Disasi as a centre-back. Move Konsa from centre-back to right back, and that would be so much better. And Unai did it against PSG, didn't work at all. Again, he was cooked. Did it in this game, didn't work at all. Was cooked. The way he commits himself on the Doku, on the second goal, and what Doku does to him is ridiculous at this level. So for me, this was massively on Emery.
I was struck by City's lineup again, and it's late in the season. I just don't understand kind of what's going on, because they bring in all these young players in the summer, and you figure Pep staying, but then we don't see these guys play. You know, Nico and Kusanov and whatever. We see other guys. We see McAtee and O'Reilly, who we're told are attacking midfielders. One of them plays wide, comes inside. The other one playing left back, and obviously effective. There's no proper center forward. I guess Marmoush was coming in.
Yeah.
And then you have all the old guys, all the ballers, Gundogan, De Bruyne, Kovacic, Bernardo. It just seems weird, and there's no Phil Foden. I don't... again, it's the kind of thing where we don't question it because it's Pep and he's a genius and he's earned the right.
Yeah.
But it's thinking outside the box, and I love it when he thinks outside the box, but it has to work. And late goal aside, I'm not sure this worked. This would have been really, really bad if they had dropped 2 points here.
Yeah, and it was not a really good performance, let's be honest. The first half was not too bad. Second half was, until the goal, was pretty average, I thought, from both teams. Maybe he just wanted a bit more control, and that gives you more than Doku, Savinho, even more than Foden. That's what you get with the players that you mentioned. So I think that was probably the idea there. Even O'Reilly brings you even more of that control because he's the left back that steps into midfield a lot and plays into midfield, and that quality on the ball, really. So all about I guess the control, which works to a certain extent, certainly not to lose games, to win games.
That's what I mean. I mean, I understand control when you don't want to concede, you want to pick your spots, or maybe you have a real center forward and you ping the ball around and then you get it to him, or he generates space. But when you're effectively playing without a center forward, that control seems purely defensive against a team where, for Villa, a point would have been fine.
Yeah,
I mean, they've got big game coming up at the weekend, and I mean, obviously so do City, but more so for Villa, I think.
Yeah.
That surprised me. And Jules, a stat: when they conceded that goal. This is the 22nd goal they've conceded at home this season. Do you know how many years ago? That is the most goals conceded at home.
I read it somewhere. I saw it somewhere.
2003-04. I mean, this is like pre-Abu Dhabi, pre-Taksin. This is like bad City type number.
Bad City. And I don't even know what people are complaining about the Ruben Dias penalty. It's a penalty every day. I just don't understand. He barges into him. It's not about him being in the way. It's just he barges into a player that has the ball, that has control of the ball. So it's a penalty. It's another mistake by Ruben. It's another mistake defensively from City that are just not good enough defensively.
Marcus Rashford did well, but also his entourage has put out his demands and his expectations for the future. I thought it was pretty remarkable. He doesn't want to move to London. He wants a Champions League club. He wants. We're going to break down further whether he's just maybe that tiny bit deluded about how much leverage he actually has. All right, let's break this Rashford stuff down a little bit further, because, of course, Rashford is Manchester United related, and they're massive, and they do metrics and all this stuff that's so important in engagement. All right, he has 3 years left on his contract at Manchester United. Under the reported terms of his deal with Villa can make the deal permanent for £40 million. Big sticking point is his salary, which I believe is in excess of £15 million a year. Again, just for context, he might just have slipped out of the top 5 of highest paid players in the Premier League. But he's very close.
Not far, yeah.
So that 40, let's start with the 40 million is completely irrelevant.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because, Aston Villa, I think if they went to United and said, we'll take him for free and pay all his wages going forward, United I don't think are going to say no. United know that at his age, he's 28 years old. He's not going to get, nobody's going to give you money for Marcus Rashford. It seems very evident to me. Even though he has been playing better.
Yeah.
But it's still not something, he hasn't been playing to a salary. So then I was surprised then his entourage come out and says, well, maybe he'll go back to Manchester United. Maybe if he does move, it has to be a Champions League club. He doesn't want to move to London. I don't know what the issue is there. So I look at Champions League clubs in the Premier League. We don't know who's going to be there. I don't know, you can go play for Nottingham Forest. And Mr. Marinakis can bring you Marcus Rashford.
Exactly.
You'd be a fit there.
Can you imagine? After Jesse Lingard, Marcus Rashford.
Man City, I don't think are going to go for Marcus Rashford for obvious reasons. Liverpool,
neither.
obviously not. I don't think he has a market abroad. Do you?
I think he always wanted to go abroad anyway. He didn't want to go to Aston Villa. He didn't want to stay in England. I think the dream was always Spain, especially Barcelona, which they seem to really believe in.
But Marcus and Barcelona's wingers are absolute rubbish, right?
Yeah,
Lamine
of
Yamal and
course.
Rafinha. So he would walk into that team.
And even
I'm being
the centre
sarcastic,
forward
internet.
is a bit old, but he's still pretty good. So
He doesn't want to play center forward too.
as well,
apparently.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Although he played as centre forward in this game, obviously, and against PSG in the Champions League. So I don't really know where the future is. And there's maybe a solution if Villa qualify for the Champions League and want to keep him and can keep him and find an agreement with him on salary, because they obviously cannot pay £350,000 a week. This is not, it would destroy their wage bill, their wage structure. I'm not even sure they could actually afford it anyway. So, but maybe if he's happy there, maybe there's a way there. But I think I think a lot of people saw this move and him playing a little bit better, saying, "Oh yeah, great! Now the future is looking bright for Marcus Rashford." I'm not sure it is looking bright. I think it's still very complicated on what he does next. It's not a loan of 6 months, even if it's a bit better. True, that really right now is changing everything.
I would say the future is bright. Oh, and the other thing that he said, is that he doesn't want to be involved in a swap deal because those are complicated. Again, this is what's being reported. I presume it comes from his entourage. I think, by the way, his communication is absolutely terrible. The people who are speaking on his behalf. First of all, swap deals don't necessarily need to be that complicated. And so it's not your freaking problem. You were at United sitting on your backside when Ten Hag put you out of the team. You know what? You think it's going to take time this summer to sort out a swap? This makes zero sense to me.
Yeah.
But I think what gets me now is the option of going back to United. I mean, Amorim had 3 months to assess him, right?
Yeah.
And obviously it's not working there. I mean, you either like Emery and you thank Mr. Emery for sorting out your career and even putting aside a guy like Ollie Watkins, who's been so popular at the club and so important to the club, to give you space. Otherwise, dude, I kind of feel like, you control your future. You're a big name. You need to take a pay cut. You need to take a voluntary pay cut and say, you know what? I am being owed I think the figure's closer to 300. You mentioned 350. Others have said 350. Whatever it is, right?
Something like that.
It's basically it's 50 million pounds over the next 3 years, right? Give or take. You come out and you say, you know what? I'm going to play for 200 grand a week. Next 3 years. Who wants me? And I will speak to United. Because if you go to United and you say, look, we'll take him off your hands on a permanent deal and we won't give you any money for it, I don't think United are going to say no. Or if it's just a few million. I think that's something you can negotiate. And then you have to negotiate with Rashford. Rashford just drop his demands. If he has all this ambition, if he wakes up and he says, I already have generational wealth, let me go. And then, then maybe if you want to go abroad, you'll find a team that can take you. The only teams in the world that pay this kind of wages are Real Madrid, who need a player like Rashford, like they need a hole in the head right now. Barcelona, where there's better players than you in your positions. Bayern, who, I think they're all in for Verts and stuff, and they already have a gaggle of wingers.
Rashford,
That's it. Like honestly, I don't believe there's nobody else in Europe.
It's
Or Paris Saint-Germain, who've
yeah.
obviously gone in a very different direction,
Yeah.
and who arguably have better players than you in those positions.
Yeah.
So to me,
that's why I said it's complicated. I really don't know. Nobody can tell me where Marcus Rashford will play on September 1st. It's impossible to predict.
Villa also are in a tight spot. They did gamble a lot. They went all in. They sold Duran really, really well.
Yeah.
We don't 100% know the PSR situation, but a lot of people who've got a pretty good handle on this, including Swiss Ramble, say it's very touch and go for them.
Yeah.
It could be pretty disastrous if they don't get into the Champions League.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they will get a lot of money for their Champions League campaign this season, to be fair. So that's a massive relief compared to if they've been out in the league phase, for example. But I really think, and you almost saw it on Unai Emery's face, that second goal went in, like how, I mean, I've rarely seen him like that, and I've obviously known him really well up in Paris and in London too, to be so devastated by a goal when there's still 5 more games to play in this season, so they can still finish top 5, and yet it felt like the world collapsed on him. I think he knows that if there's no Champions League football next season, it could be a very tricky summer. And not just to keep Rashford or Sancho if they want to keep him or even Disasi, but for everything they're trying to build there, and especially to build that momentum. And that's why they said after the PSG tie too, that they wanted to have more nights like that. And for that, you have to play every single season in the Champions League. And imagine going back to the Conference League next season. Yeah, which they were obviously not that long ago, but it still doesn't feel the same, obviously, and it's certainly not the same revenue.
I mean, the last couple of years they performed minor miracles and getting all that money for Diaby and then getting all that money for John Duran. I think that well has run dry.
Yeah.
Obviously, Monchi is a very, very clever operator, and you hope if you're a Villa fan that you don't have to lose one of your big pieces. And I say big pieces. Okay, Watkins is slightly different because he's a bit older and stuff. Yeah. He would get you some money back, but if you miss out on everything and you need to get a big influx, you don't want to be giving up your stars, but you don't want to be giving up a Morgan Rogers.
Kamara and Rogers are the two. Kamara, especially for me, the most important player in that team. So,
shifting back to City, we're befuddled by some of his decisions. I'm befuddled. I've been befuddled all year. In fact, fun fact: if you told people the reigning player of the year is Phil Foden, I think few people would believe you. Now, at the start of the season when he wasn't playing, you had a virus, you had this and that.
Burnout,
What's the issue now?
I mean, he played 57 minutes in the derby. That's his only appearance in the last 4 Premier League games. I mean, O'Reilly and McAtee and players like that ahead of him. I'm not saying that he could play left back like O'Reilly, but he's still so low in the picking order. I even wonder if he warm-ups, Gabs, during games, if he actually goes on the touchline and runs with his bib with the others. I mean, every time the camera pans on to him during games, he looks so, again, deflected and so upset. I just don't know. Or maybe they just want to see the season out and think, you know what, next season you'll be back to your best and it's okay and we'll build a team around you. KDB will be gone.
Well, that young man with the red hair running around, he looks pretty darn good.
Yeah. I mean, if they sign Florian Wirtz, it's probably the worst thing that could happen to Phil Foden, I think. I just don't see a place for Phil Foden in this team, away from being central, as in like central position behind Haaland. Wide is not for him anymore. I think we all know that, even for control. So if Wirtz come for 150 million, then I think that's not the end for Foden. He's still young enough, but that's really bad news for him.
It seems so odd to me the way City operate and are run, and I'll be really curious to see. Obviously, there's been a change. It's not just about Pep; it's about Hugo Viana, right? Mm-hmm. And how he sees it, because they invested in all these younger players, and I think we all had some doubts. I mean, Reis, I haven't seen enough. I don't know.
Yeah.
Husanov, I've seen. I think the guy's really raw, and I think that's a ton of money to spend on a guy that unproven, who you just don't know can make the grade at City. Nico, my thoughts.
Nico,
I think it's money down the toilet, or all that money anyway. And then you've got KDB leaving. You've got Bernardo Silva. Every year it's the same charade about him. Like, oh no, he wants to go. He wants to stay. Pep, I don't keep anybody against the world. He's still there. I mean, it's a lot of questions. It's a long, long list of things.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, will Pep be a part of it?
Yeah, I think he will be. I mean, I think even if he extended his contract when things were much better before the huge drop, obviously, and dip, I still think he will be there. But it's more. We know they have money. How much money do they really have? Because if they're ready to spend that much on Verts, if that's true, I mean, 150 million. How much left do you have after that for other positions that need? And then we said the whole squad needs so much surgery. I hope for them they've got 300 million, because if half of that is gone on Verts, who's an amazing player, but then it doesn't leave you much then behind to look after all the other positions.
And I think there's a lot of positions, and a lot of, obviously, Gundogan we don't think is going to be around. KDB's leaving. There's just a lot of bodies you have to.
Yeah, I think they extended Gundogan by a year, but
I mean, what are you going to get out of him?
Yeah, exactly. But right back, left back, there's so many things to look into, really.
And we haven't even mentioned the 115 charges. All right, enough City. Let's talk about the Gab and Juls draft.
Yes.
This is kind of an annual tradition that we've done for the last 4 years. It's NFL draft day. We're big NFL fans.
Yeah.
We're going to pick our best players born in 2003.
Yeah, great year. Great year.
We've been college seniors. I would say good year at the top, but we'll go through it.
Yeah.
Jules, you had the first pick last time. Actually, let's just remind you, our first picks from the class of 2002, it was Kamavinga. From the 2001s, it was Bukayo Saka. And from the 2000s, it was Erling Braut Haaland.
Yeah.
Pretty good. You'll find this stuff online. You can make fun of us about bad picks we made in the past. But let's get stuck into this year. I get the first pick because you had first pick last time.
Right, yeah.
So I'm going to make this very easy for myself. I'm going to take Florian Wirtz.
I was wondering who. There's obviously
There's three outstanding
There's three
options.
outstanding,
And it's
yeah,
actually
exactly.
better to pick second, because this way, you get the other two.
So if you get Verts, and I would have got Verts 2 in first place, so I can't really understand your pick, Gab. Obviously, my one would be Jamal Musiala as my first pick, but the number 2 in our 2025 draft.
All right. And then you get the third pick as well.
Obviously,
He won't be happy.
no, he won't be happy because he's only number 3. But again, Jude Bellingham, even if you're not the biggest fan, even if you're not still not sure exactly what his best position is, which I can understand, I think he's still pretty outstanding. So Jude in third and my second pick.
If we had done this last year in his junior season, so to speak, I would imagine he would have been first. That's what I find.
Maybe.
That's one of the things I find interesting about this. Okay, with the fourth and fifth picks of the Gab and Juls draft of the class of 2003, I am going with Milos Kerkez.
Oh, nice. That's really high.
Well, I think it's a position in demand. I think he's got
Wow.
a very bright future. And I'm going to go, because we're buying futures, and strikers are worth more than attacking midfielders. And even though he hasn't had a good season, I reluctantly go for Benjamin Sesko.
Good. Sesko was quite high on my list. Kerkez not so high. My turn then for 6th and 7th, my 3rd and 4th. Really, if you know me, you know who's coming next. Although he's not from Paris, but I think he's, of all these players, the best technically anyway.
You're choosing the Italian guy.
Exactly, the Italian guy. Just for you, so high. Ryan Cherky, who will lift the next World Cup with Italy, obviously, as we all know. Ryan Cherky in 6, I just think, listen, somebody who can take corners from each foot, for in swinging, it always gets my vote. So Cherky, I would have gone for Sesko as my next one, but you took him. So I would go to defender, because now I've got attacking midfielders and all of that. And Antonio Silva, of all that list, and there's plenty of contender there that we will, I'm sure, mention around all our picks, but Antonio Silva from Benfica, I love him. It could have been Colwill, it could have been Diomande, it could have been Scalvini. They really are other contenders, but I've gone for Silva. I just love the elegance, I love the size, I love the intelligence. So Silva for me.
All right, I had Antonio Silva far lower on my draft board, but based on essentially the season he had this year and is having. But based on all that, with my number 8 pick in the draft, I am going for a former Paris Saint-Germain guy. And of course, not Paris born and bred, because he's not French. It's Xavi Simons. And with my 9th pick, I am going tried and tested Alejandro Balde from Barcelona. You know, he's been around a while. We often forget about him, but he's still very, very young. He's the real deal. He's maybe more proven than most of the guys on this list.
Well, 2 left backs in your 5. I like that. Xavi was not even on my list of 20. I don't like him. I don't rate him.
So you leave Paris Saint-Germain.
Exactly. It was
you
never
left
good
like
for
60
us
million
anyway.
behind, you know.
We
Should
took
be
the money.
grateful.
Thank you very much for the money. So the 10th pick, which is my
Only do
5th
10
one.
because we're going to save 11 through 20 for the Gab and Juls podcast.
Exactly. And that one is Mark Casado or Fermin Lopez. I'm in between. I don't know if I want to go a bit more defensive. I don't know if I want to go a bit more offensive. I like the energy and activity of Fermin. I like the intelligence of Casado and the passing. And I'll go for Fermin.
Ooh, he was not on my board at all. Interesting there. Jules, you're up. Pick 11.
Yeah, number 11, which is my 6th pick. Yeah, that's right. I said I love Fermin, I love Casado. I could not really different themselves or pick one over the other. So you know what? I'm going to pick Casado as my 11th then.
Mark Casado, 11. By the way, Barcelona fans, we've already picked 3 Barcelona players between us.
Means a lot.
I think things are pretty darn good over there. With my 12th pick, I'm going to pick a guy from a relegated team. Ooh, who could that be? Why, of course, it's Mr. Delap.
Yes.
Well, sorry, they haven't actually been relegated
Not
yet,
yet, but soon.
but
it was high on my list too.
But it's coming, yes. Another center forward. And with number 13 on my board, I am going to go with somebody who is going to win the Premier League title. Has already won.
Oh, you love him.
He's won a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Didn't get a lot of love from his manager at the start of this year.
That's true.
You know who I'm going with?
Yeah, Harvey.
Harvey Elliott. Yes, former Fulham star Harvey Elliott.
Martin in 14 and 15 in our draft. I'll go for John Duran at 14. I know he moved to Saudi. I know maybe at his age. Think about the money. That was the kid, but he will come back to Europe at some point, and he will be very good because he's I think that good and has everything to his game. And just below him at 15, I'll have Pablo Barrios. Again, a Spanish midfielder. Very impressed with him in Atletico side that I think was lacking something that he helped fill. So I love watching him play. I think he's brilliant.
Cholo Simeone absolutely loves him as well. All right. So, we already have one Italian guy on the list, Ryan Cherky.
Yeah.
I knew this other Italian guy was going to fall all the way down. He's injured. It's okay. He'll be back. And, of course, it is Giorgio Scalvini and the big curly head. At number 17, might as well go for another defender. A guy who has not had the greatest season, but I think is a tremendous prospect, is a tremendous footballer already on England international. It's Levi Colwill.
Yeah, it was high on my list, and then as we were doing it, it kind of went a little bit lower. I've got 2 more spots now, and I've got literally 3 players for them too. Bakayoko from PSV Eindhoven, Haraldsson from Lille, who I absolutely adore and I think has a great future. And Emmanuel Emega from Strasbourg, who also has a great future and top clubs are looking at right now. So I will go in 18 for Emega. I think he's got the highest ceiling. I think he's going to be a wonderful player. He's got the personality to. He's a little bit arrogant for some, maybe. I hear that. But he's got everything, the pace, the skills. He doesn't mind being physical. I think he's going to be really, really good in his, obviously like all of them, still very young. So Emega in 18th. And in 19th, I'm sorry, Bakayoko, it's not you. It's the little prince, Haraldsson from Lille, because I just think, again, I was talking to a sporting director from an English club just before the Liverpool-Lille game, who had been really impressed by Haraldsson through the whole season. I think he's been one of Lille's best players, one of the Ligue 1 really biggest revelations this season. I can really see a bright future for him. So Haraldsson is my pick in 19th.
So Haraldsson's the little prince because Charles de Ketelaere is the
Probably,
big prince.
yeah. And he's much bigger than him.
He is much, much bigger. All right. At number 20, I'm going to go for a guy who's kind of a certainty. A guy who was already starting on the biggest stage in the world, thrown in at the deep end this season, did not miss a beat on a team that in many ways has been a shambles defensively. I think he generally has stood tall, and that man is Raul Asensio. All right, Jules. This is
it.
This is our 20.
Yeah.
Just reminding you, Jules's picks: Jamal Musiala, Jude Bellingham, Benjamin Sesko. Sorry, Jamal Musiala, Jude Bellingham, Ryan Shirky. Thank you for picking the Italian guy.
Yeah.
Antonio Silva, Fermin Lopez, Marc Casado. A lot of Barca in here. John Duran, Barrios from Atletico Madrid, Emega, and Haraldsson, the little prince, le petit prince.
Yeah.
Whereas I've gone for Florian Wirtz, Milos Kerkez, Benjamin Sesko, more of a East European bent to mine. Xavi Simons, Alejandro Balde, Delap, Harvey Elliott, Giorgio Scalvini, Levi Colwell, and Raul Asensio. I think fair to say you've gone more for ceiling guys.
Yes.
I've gone more for pretty reliable dead certainties. Like I am pretty confident that all these guys, none of these, or maybe only one or two of these guys are going to flame out and stink, but maybe they aren't going to become world beaters other than Wirtz, obviously.
Yeah.
Whereas you've gone more for people who have a bigger upside.
Yeah, I mean, it's only really Mega and Haraldsson. The others are starting in top clubs in Europe, so there's no worries there either.
John
But for
Duran
Emega,
too.
Yeah, apart from John, but John Duran, I know he went for the money, but he's still very good. I think there's no doubt there. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good top 20. Really good.
Should we just name check some of the guys that we could have picked but did not? You mentioned Bakayoko.
Yeah, and Diomande. They're the only two other on my list. Otherwise, we picked all the names I had down. So
what you hate Malo Gusto now? He would have been an option
but
too.
Top 20, I don't think he deserved top 20.
Petar Sucic, Bireth scoring a ton of goals for Monaco.
No, not yet. I need to see a bit more.
Amari Hutchinson.
Please.
Connor Bradley.
Come on.
All right. And finally, the one guy who, again, had we done this list a year or two ago, might have been up there, Eli Wahi.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
He's
maybe
one
he
who's
would have top
obviously
20.
run into some issues this season. All right, enough draft. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's go, Gab.
Dani Olmo scores the only goal as Barcelona down Mallorca 1-0. Jules, no Lewandowski, so just the 40 shots on goal for Hansi Flick's crew.
Yeah, Ferran Torres plays as a number 9. And to be fair, it was really good fun to watch if you'd watched that game. Leo Roman, the Mallorca goalkeeper, who never plays, had to make 14 saves or something like that. Not all very difficult, but some very difficult. But really, you watch this game for Pedri because this was his game. He was incredible from start to finish. I think he's the best midfielder in the world right now. I don't think anybody can come close even. He's just so good, even in that deeper position. So it was an absolute joy to watch. And for Barca, that game was on Tuesday, right? So they put pressure on Real Madrid, we will talk about later. That plays on Wednesday.
The reinvention of Pedri into a deeper position this year, I think, is actually an underreported story. Crazy as it sounds, but it's like the third or fourth biggest story out of Barcelona, and maybe should be much, much, much higher.
Yeah. Milan blow away Inter 3-0 in the second leg of the Coppa Italia semi-final on Wednesday night. Gab, no quadruple then for Inzaghi. What happened?
Well, at least I'm kind of happy that we won't have to hear this talk anymore because it was kind of silly to begin with. Look, he made his changes. He's got bigger fish to fry. He's got the Barcelona game. He doesn't say this. He says, I have my squad. I rotate, blah, blah, blah. I thought Inter were actually pretty good in the first half. Magic Mike made some big saves. And then in the second half, of all people, Luka Jovic. Luka Jovic has scored more goals than Santi Jimenez since Jimenez arrived. It's not good for Jimenez. The 3-4-3 working, I guess, for Conceição, who, don't worry, he's still going to go at the end of the season. Take his cigars with him. But it's really big for Milan. For Inter, I think they ran out of legs in the second half.
Of the three competitions, I know, because really, we said quadruple. It's
the four, which are the Club World Cup.
Yeah, but of the three that are playing right now, the Club World Cup, they haven't started, it's the one that you want to lose, right? Not the Champions League, not the league.
Yeah, no question about it. But it's not like they made a choice
No,
to
true,
lose
true,
it.
true.
And I think it's still a derby, and it still really stings. But impressive from Milan. But Milan have the quality individuals. We know that. Arsenal and Palace battled to a 2-2 draw, which means Liverpool have to wait a few more days to celebrate their title. Jules, you're a big Mateta guy.
course.
Boom, boom, boom. How about that?
Incredible finish, really sloppy from Saliba to kind of mispass the ball, but then from such a big guy like Mateta, not the most technical, as in we talked about Pedri before, Mateta and Pedri not in the same league technically, but to chip the ball like he did, or like a dead leaf, we say in French, the feuille morte, like those old school free kick that Michel Platini used to score, that just to drop that ball like that, incredible, really incredible. I know some people have questioned maybe Raya's position, but he obviously opened the angle for the pass from Saliba, and that's why he then had to run a bit to try to make that space again. But from Mateta, wonderful, especially since the last 3 games, he was not at his best, neither were Palace, but that was perfect 3 days before the FA Cup semi-final against Aston Villa on Saturday at Wembley. So well done to him for one of the goals of the season, I think.
Were you surprised that he played so many starters? I guess the Champions League is a week away, so why not?
Yeah. I think it was a very strong Arsenal team apart from Bukayo Saka. Really, the others will be the starting lineup for without Partey for the first leg, with Partey and probably not Trossard for the second leg, and with Merino in the first leg. But yeah, very strong from Palace and Glasner too. To be fair, apart from Ismail Assar, and the rest was very strong. 3 days before and Nketiah 3 days before the FA Cup. But yeah, I think it worked for them. And sticking with Arsenal, Gabby, David Ornstein and many others, I mean, this was a no-brainer, said that Thomas Partey was a free agent in June, could be extending his contract. We heard Mikel Arteta saying last week that he wanted him to stay, so it's pretty logical. But you and Mark think it's not a good idea.
No, I think it's a terrible idea for many reasons. There's obviously the reasons that we can't, that are out there, and that maybe are not footballing reasons, but like his age, for example, or his salary. The fact that Ornstein and others again suggested, he might be getting improved terms, makes me think that this is his camp talking. If I were Arsenal, this is exactly what I'd be doing. I'd be talking up Thomas Partey. Maybe I'd get more leverage for Zubimendi. But once you know that Zubimendi is in the bag, for me, there is no reason to then spend a lot of money on this guy, even for a year or 2 years. In fact, maybe you're doing this maybe you're considering it as an alternative to Zubimendi. Maybe you get leverage over Zubimendi. But no, I think it's definitely 1,000% for many, many reasons time to move on. But we'll be discussing this further. Mark and I are we did our Arsenal keep or dump series. And unsurprisingly, Arsenal are in a very strong position. And Mark is obsessed with getting a big-time center forward, where, of course, I'm still Team Kai Havertz, but yes. I suggest maybe Mateta as a backup to Havertz.
Yeah.
What do you think? Would you like Mateta? Would you have Mateta at Arsenal?
Yeah.
As a reserve?
That's not going to happen. But yeah.
Mateta, Strand Larsen?
Oh, my God. I love that, yeah. Johan Wissa? Here we go.
Arda Güler helps Real Madrid to a 1-0 win away to Getafe at the Coliseum. Jules, a lot of changes out of the Copa del Rey final. And again, Courtois saving their bacon at the end.
I never thought I would say that, but Getafe had more shot, more chances,
more XG,
high expected goals than Real Madrid. Please. Getafe, the most defensive team in the whole defense of the whole entire defensive world. So how you watch this game and you feel like, again, I know Arda Güler scored a lovely goal and there was a couple of other chances for Real Madrid, and there was a lot of rotation, as you said, no Rudiger,
Hendrik,
no
not
Mbappe,
happy.
Hendrik. But come on, man. I don't it's just not, it's not good enough for me from a Real Madrid point of view, tactically, technically, what they do, the performances. I don't know. I just don't like it, really.
They haven't had a big, clean, comfortable win in ages.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Gav, the Athletic reports that Carlo Ancelotti is in advanced talks with the Brazilian FA, and we've been here before.
Yeah, of course. This is, advanced talks. The Brazilian FA saying, no, the only people authorized to talk are Reginaldo, who's the president, and some other dude who actually wasn't in Madrid. Carlo Ancelotti doesn't need to be in advanced talks with anyone. There's nothing to talk about. He's going to stay at Real Madrid until Real Madrid tell him to leave. That's very, very obvious. For the future at the same time. And related to this is Fernando Carro, who is the chief executive of Bayer Leverkusen. He's very explicit. He said, maybe it's 50-50 that Xabi Alonso leaves And of course, he's got a gentleman's agreement where he can go to one of his older clubs. He's not going to go to Liverpool. I think we know that. So obviously, he has also played for Real Madrid. He's also played for Bayern. I'd be a little bit worried about that one there, guys. Fernando. So watch the space. I mean, certainly, I don't think he can turn around Real Madrid in 1 year. Xabi Alonso. It's just not that type of manager. But yeah, watch the space. It's going to be huge when it happens. Let's rewind to Monday night. Tottenham Hotspur lose again, beaten 2-1 at home by Nottingham Forest. Jules, but maybe we shouldn't be surprised that number 4 in the table wins away to number 16 in the table.
Yeah, and I think this game summed up very well Spurs' season, saying that they could not defend for their lives and conceded 2 poor goals to concede so bad between Vicario's mistake on the Wood goal and the poor deflection and stuff on the first goal from Elliot Anderson. And then they had chances. They could have scored before even that late Richarlison goal. They could not. I mean, they could not score. They could not even hit the ball hit the tire. It was just so Spurs is so bad. And you're right. It's probably normal. What we expected, really.
It just looks so disorganized. But that's huge for Forest. Yeah, really big 3
massive
points.
Win for Forest. Juventus have slipped to 5th in Serie A now as Matteo Pellegrino's header means that they lose away at Parma 1-0. I thought things were supposed to be better and that you go 2 though.
They are better in the sense that the general vibe is better. They're playing rational football. I think they were penalized in this game. Vlahovic picking up an injury, subbed at halftime. He didn't start Kenan Yildiz. He should start. I don't want to see
Colomwani behind the striker.
I don't really need to see much of Colomwani at all. And then at the end also, Chico Conceição. I have nothing against the Conceição family. But dude, every time the same thing. Little dribble, shoot, save. Dribble, shoot, wide. Stop. Paris Saint-Germain have already won the title, so motivation is what it is. But they're held 1-1 away to Nantes on the day they honored the legendary Maxime Bossis. Jules, this is pretty much the A-team from Luis Enrique, no?
Yeah, he just missed no Doué or Barcola, no Hakimi, and no Pacho, and that was it. The rest was it. It's all about the record that they broke, which is Arrigo Sacchi's record with Milan of the most away league games unbeaten, 38. That's 39 now for PSG, which is a wonderful achievement. Wolves' Mateus Cunha is being strongly linked with Manchester United and has a release clause fee of around £62 million. Gab, would that make sense to you?
So, this is something that Mark Ogden and I debate at length in our Keep and Dump Manchester United edition, which I believe is coming out Thursday or Friday this week. I don't think it makes sense. And the reason I don't think it makes sense is there's several reasons. One is he's 25, 62 million for a player at that age who's, had maybe a couple really top seasons. Again, in this version of the transfer window without the long-term upside,
it's a lot of money.
A ton of money.
Yeah.
Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, and also this is a guy he's had some good seasons, he's had some really bad seasons. He was a super highly rated prospect. Obviously, he went to Hertha, went to Atletico Madrid, didn't quite work out. So he's had a lot of ups and downs at big clubs, but he's turned his career around. But mostly at Wolves, he plays behind a center forward. So if you're signing him, Mark was saying, well, he can play center forward. Yeah, maybe he can play center forward, but he's done that before. But he's really produced this year playing in a 10 and an often counter-attacking team behind a big center forward. And when I look at the 10s in the system, Amad Diallo's coming back. He's one of my 10s. I don't like Bruno in that midfield. I assume United are going to bring in some hardcore, high-end midfielder. And so Bruno's going to play number 10.
Yeah.
And so then are you spending this money on a guy who's going to back up Diallo and Bruno? That's the part I don't get.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's better than Amad Diallo in that 10, and Amad can still play as a
wing back?
Yeah, as a wing back, which is a bit of what Amorim did with Kwanda Sporting, which I think can work. But I agree with you, it's a lot of money. I know he's young. Obviously, Cunha's agent is Ruben Amorim's agent, our friend Uncle George, which probably would help.
It's funny how these things happen.
It's funny, isn't it? And I know this is a great season for Cunha, but you're right. It's a great season in a team that has been struggling, where he's the main guy, where the ball comes to him a lot, where everything is built around him. There's a few discipline issues there through the whole season, let's not forget, too.
Yeah.
But I love him as a player, and I think this could work. Not at 62 million. If you can get the price down, then maybe, around 40 is far more... realistic is the wrong word, but probably fairer in terms of price.
I think if you get, I agree, you get him down, if you bring in a big center forward to be your main center forward, and then maybe you have him as he can back up the big guy.
Yeah, exactly.
He can be an alternative at the 10. Maybe sometimes he plays, or sometimes Yalo, because you probably need backups at the 10 too. Because right now it's Mount and Xerxes if he stays, and Xerxes at 10.
Menu,
even though there might be solution Menu again, but that's Menu, Xerxes. None of these guys have pulled up. Mount's been injured. Maybe, but you'd have to get the price down.
Yeah.
Burnley and Leeds United have both been promoted back to the Premier League. Jules, I don't follow the Championship.
Nope.
So what do I need to know? Reportedly Burnley's manager is your buddy Scott Parker.
Yeah, third promotion with 3 different clubs. It's pretty amazing, really.
Well, not that amazing because Daniel Farke has also had 3 promotions, albeit with 2 different clubs.
Yeah.
But I read in the Daily Mail that Daniel Farke, Leeds United might be choosing a different manager. Daniel Farke good enough to get you up, but once you're in the big time, you need somebody else. Is this the message?
Because usually it goes down. That's the thing. The seasons there are not, certainly with Norwich at the time, it was not good enough, I guess. 2 very different teams. I mean, the Leeds squad is a Premier League squad, pretty much, when you think about it. The Burnley squad and the Burnley success is built on defense. Incredible, the best defense ever that I've ever seen. 15 goals conceded in 44 league games so far. There's 2 more to go, obviously. But as this beats any of the great defensive we had, albeit not in the Championship, but even in the Premier League or in Italy before. So that's how they got there.
I think Inter Milan went through a season conceding 11 goals.
But not in 44 games. No,
because it's stupid to play 44 games.
That's what I mean. 11 in 38 is not as good as 14 in 15 in
God
44.
intended to make 20-team leagues.
Yeah,
but yes, statistically, I tell you,
you see what I mean?
Yes.
But is that what's going to happen in the Premier League?
And James Trafford is the keeper, right?
James Trafford is the
keeper.
Who is a
ridiculous
and
goalkeeper.
Maxime Esteve is the centre back. And JJ Watt is obviously a part owner of Burnley, so we like that. And there's another NFL player who's a Leeds.
Yeah.
Or somebody at Leeds.
Some guy at Birmingham, but I don't want to talk about him too.
No, not Birmingham, but
Karen Brady's son, I believe.
Yeah, there's somebody else at Leeds too. Anyway, they've got famous owners or minority owners or whatever too. So it'd be fun. Would both of them stay up next season in the Premier League?
I would assume since the Leeds squad is Premier League ready, then they're going to stay up.
They have more chances, I think, than Burnley to do so.
Although Burnley have the better dressed manager, assuming Farke stays, yeah?
Yeah, that's for sure. Jonathan Tah has confirmed that he will be leaving Bayer Leverkusen as a free agent this summer. Gabi, he's 29 years old. What sort of market do you think he will have?
So I'm not a huge Jonathan Tah guy, but I think he is really, really good for, I think, in a difficult year.
Yeah.
This year and obviously last year everything worked out for them, but again, this has been a difficult year. I think he's been steady. Of course, occasionally he makes mistakes. The fact that he's a free agent, I remember the last time a free agent, a German free agent, moved to a club, maybe a club in Spain. That was Antonio Rudiger. That worked out pretty well, right? Now, would you want to reform the German center back pairing, given all of Germany's successes? I don't know, but I think it's one of the options you have to consider. Maybe Xabi Alonso goes there. I think he's a guy. Those teams, okay. Arsenal are fine with their center backs, but Arsenal are an example, right? You finish second 3 years in a row. How do I make the next step? I don't mind getting an older guy, giving him a big contract, 3-4 years. He's going to put me over the top. I'm sure Arsenal don't need him because they have enough center backs. But a team like that, I think, would be the logic. Every indication is that he's a good pro. He's the kind of guy that, sometimes you see center backs continuing when they're older, 33, 34. I mean, Inter have a whole gaggle of them, right? De Vrij, Acerbi, and so on. Actually, that could be a good landing spot for him as well. He can mentor Jan Bissek in German.
Exactly.
Why not? I think the world is pretty much his oyster. If he doesn't get too greedy, I think he can pick his team, pick his project. I suspect he's going to wait and see what happens with with Xabi Alonso.
Yeah, of course.
Chelsea cannot mathematically finish below 14th this season.
Yeah,
which
somehow
it sounds mad to even say, but that means that they're going to either have to pay Manchester United between 20 and 25 million and make Jadon Sancho a permanent signing, or they can pay Manchester United £5 million and send him back, which is basically a £5 million loan fee.
Loan fee.
What do you think they'll do, and what should they do, Jules?
Pay the fine. Pay the 5 million. Don't sign him permanently. I'm sorry, I haven't seen enough from him yet. At times, he's been good moments. That curler the other day, great goal. It's not enough. It hasn't been enough, I think, for Jadon Sancho to convince, that's the word, Chelsea to pay £25 million. Even 20 million, I still think is, with the wages that he has, I would not, personally, I would not go there. I just don't think he's done enough this season.
Yeah, I disagree. He's got a year left on his contract. If you can get him to sign a contract that you're comfortable with, and obviously he's going to have to take a pay cut. He does not have much leverage, but if you give him a longer term deal on less money, the reality is Chelsea's wingers right now are just as a group not good. You have Nani Madueke, who's very hit or miss. You have Neto, who, other than the fact he can play on both wings, and the fact that he's a short last name, I don't see anything special about him whatsoever. You have Mudryk, who we're going to talk about in a minute, who is suspended, and you have Joao Felix. Don't forget him, threatening to come back.
Exactly. Yeah, I would not keep Sancho when Joao Felix is coming back as well. Definitely not.
No, baby, you first of all, you package Joao Felix and you say, Uncle George, take him away. But I actually, if you can get him on the right price, he's mid-career. I think he's shown flashes. I think he's probably the most technical winger they have, frankly. And if he's motivated and he's happy, if you can get him to sign a deal at the right price, I don't think 20 million, given he's still, 25 years old? Something like that? Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a bad deal.
Mikhailo Mudryk hasn't played for Chelsea since November, and he's provisionally suspended after testing positive for a banned substance. Gab, what is he doing to prove his innocence?
So this is interesting. And this is one of my issues with lawyers and the stupid rules the Premier League and the FA have, where they don't say anything. So he tests positive in January. And when you test positive, there's an A sample, and then there's the B sample. The B sample is your count analysis. Essentially, they take one sample, split it in two, and then they test it in two different labs, right? Just to make sure there's no mistake or whatever. Now, all the information we're getting, it doesn't come from Chelsea or the FA or Mudryk's people. It comes from Dimitri Palkin, who's the chief executive of Shakhtar Donetsk, who sold him. Now, he's an interested party, partly because he says he's Mudryk's buddy, partly because Shakhtar Donetsk could get up to 30 million in bonuses based on Mudryk's performances. And his performance has not been good, but they're going to be even worse if he doesn't play, right? Yeah. So Palkin's come out. He said that as part of his defense, he took a lie detector test, which sounds slightly hokey. I also wonder who administered it. I know. Whatever. It sounds pretty hokey and stupid to me. He took this substance called meldonium, which I believe was a substance that was linked to Maria Sharapova back when it was legal. Yeah. And it is legal in some countries, but not in others. Certainly not legal for in football. According to Palkin, the B sample hasn't been tested yet. Now, again, I could ask them, but they won't tell me because it's all reserved. But how does his A sample get tested in January? What, in the B sample, they just leave it in the fridge somewhere? I don't. Why is there this lack of clarity, this lack of transparency? You test the A sample, a week later you test the B sample. Very simple. If they're both positive, then you have your hearing. Yeah. And then he brings his evidence. Not like 4 months later. Seriously, what happens if the B sample is negative? I mean, assuming Palkin's right, the B sample is negative. What happens then? Who compensates him? Who compensates Chelsea for the 4 months that he's been out? And don't make a joke that he's so rubbish that it's probably good that he's not there, right?
No, I agree.
This just isn't fair. I would love to know how these things, if there's an explanation, guys, if there's a good reason why this is taking so long, come out and tell us. Also back on Monday, Go Ahead Eagles. Of course, I love that name on so many bases. Not just the Eagles, but it's the Go Ahead part. Yeah. They come from behind to win the Dutch Cup against AZ Alkmaar in the most dramatic way.
Incredible, Gab. They hadn't won a single trophy since 1933. So that's a very long time. They're in the final somehow, and they'll go down and literally...
It's not just a goal down. To go down, it's a penalty from a Spurs player.
Yeah, Troy Parrott. Right. They played AZ Alkmaar, and Troy Parrott scored, who has had a good season for Alkmaar. Scored the penalty. We're playing the 99th minute. There's just no hopes anymore. Or is there? because they somehow get a penalty after a stupid foul that you got really cross about.
This makes me so angry. So the guy who did it, he's actually Taylor Cope Miner's brother. I don't know if he's younger, older brother. He's certainly the dumber brother. Okay, now he's defending they're defending a corner. Okay, go ahead, Eagles. They're attacking, and the guy's having his shirt pulled. So to make sure that everybody knows he's having his shirt pulled, he decides he's going to jump up in the air and just throw his arms like a freaking rag doll in the air as the cross comes in, right? So obviously the ball ends up hitting his arm, and they give a penalty.
Yeah.
Who does this? It is one of the single dumbest thing. Like, I understand you want to make sure the referee sees it. You want to make a meal of it. You don't do it by jumping in the air like you've just been ragdolled. It made no sense. So they convert the penalty, and then it goes all the way to
99 minutes. Nothing happened in extra time, and then on the penalty shootout, go ahead Eagles win their first trophy in like 88 years or whatever it was, or 90 years or something. So incredible. But again, that is it like mine. Cook Miners would want to forget pretty quickly.
Go ahead Eagles coach, by the way, Paul Simonis, another in the long tradition of bald Dutch coaches. He used to have some facial hair. Now he's looking more like a thinner, less doughy Arne Slot.
Yeah. Gab, clubs playing the Club World Cup may end up getting less money than promised if FIFA don't strike a deal with the US government. What's going on?
Well, taxes, right? Death and taxes or certainties. So when FIFA organize a World Cup, men's or women's, they normally do a deal with the country so that all the operations, all the prize money and everything is tax exempt, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the bonus. So the idea is the country's going to make up for it because there'll be tourists and stuff and blah, blah, blah. I guess they haven't done it with the Club World Cup, according to the reporting by Matt Hughes in the Daily Mail. And maybe they haven't done it because there wasn't time to do it. This would explain why Gianni Infantino spent so much time in Donald Trump's office, and why he even left the Club World Cup trophy there, right next to right next to his desk, to remind him that we need to reach some sort of deal. But the thing is, the U.S., not getting too political, these are federal states, and they have different laws.
Rules,
and in some, like in Florida, there is no income tax. In others, I think in California, it's as high as 5% for this sort of thing. So depending where you play, if you don't reach a deal, you may lose millions and millions actually out of your prize money. So they're confident they can work this out. The only thing I would say is the White House is pretty busy. They got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah,
but
that's for sure.
Maybe that's why Johnny is in their face all the time. It's time! It's time! It's Texter time! Jules, our intrepid hero, has decided to fire coach Yannick Ferreira at Molenbeek. By the way, who's not Yannick Ferreira, Carrasco's dad, as I discovered. Now, this happens just a day before entering the promotion playoff. They named the successor. Everybody thought it was going to be Ivan de Camargo, but no! It's Gada Fafana, who I had to check. This is the guy who was really talented when he was very young and then retired early.
Bad ankle injury.
No idea what he was doing, but apparently he's been coaching the Lyon B team.
Yeah,
he's
really
only 33
well.
years old.
Really well. But Texto, who loves sacking a manager because he sacked tons of managers everywhere, in Botafogo, in Lyon, in Molenbeek, even at Crystal Palace, although we know he doesn't decide anything at Crystal Palace, but still they've changed a lot of managers. So he loves the sacking. He also loves to promote within because Claudio Cassapa, for example, the former Lyon player who was involved in the Lyon staff, then went a bit at Botafogo, was a bit at Molenbeek.
And got sacked.
I mean, is he really sacked when he's part of your group and you move him to another part of your group? I'm not sure of that. And for Fofana, it's a chance. They finished top of the table in the second division to go up to, they were top for a long time. Just missed out on direct promotion, I think, to the top flight in Belgium. So they have to go through the playoffs.
Or third, yeah.
Now it was, third.
The game is actually in a few hours as we record this on Thursday morning.
Monday. So good luck to Fofana because he's a lovely, lovely, lovely guy and I think a really good coach in the making.
Well, L'Equipe actually counted the number of managers that he's had. I just want to go through this. This is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Jesus Gil type stuff, right? So he took over Lyon in May 2023. They've had 6 managers since.
Yeah.
He took over Botafogo in March 2022. They've had 10 managers since. He took on Molenbeek in January 2022. They've had 5 managers since. And he took on again, as you pointed out, he only owns 45% of the club. So if Palace do something stupid, we can't blame it all on
Not
Texter.
just on him.
You know, sorry, Steve Parrish and others. You guys got to take, and Blitzer and Harris, you guys got to take responsibility too. But Palace have had 5 since August 2021. Palace, by the way, can we say the best run club out of the 4?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe the one where he just puts the
involved.
money in, but he doesn't actually make decisions.
Yeah. And sticking with owners, Boavista in Portugal are in danger of being relegated to the second division, also probably going bankrupt, which is quite the fall from grace. And now they need to train 30 kilometers away from where they usually train because the electricity has been turned off over unpaid bills. Our friend Jar Lopez.
Yeah, so this it's sad. I mean, we remember Boavista going deep in European competition.
Yeah.
I think traditionally, over the last 15 years, they've basically been the fourth force. I know Braga might dispute that.
Similar.
Generally speaking, the fourth. They're the second team from Porto.
Yeah.
After Benfica, Sporting, and Porto, they are the 4th biggest club. But they're on the verge of getting relegated. Now it seems they're not paying bills. They have a dispute. They were with a guy there's a guy they bought from Feyenoord who now is going to go to Real Salt Lake, who they haven't paid for either. That's coming up. And the thing is, it's our friend Gerard Lopez, who I interviewed a few years ago. The interview's up. He speaks very, very well. He's obviously a very bright guy.
Yeah.
Clearly, though, there's a pattern here, and we need to point this out. Lille, he took over. The club on the verge of bankruptcy. They sold them with 120 million worth of debt.
Yeah.
Mouscron, they were bankrupt 2 years after they took over. And of course, Bordeaux, as we've chronicled here many times, he took them over and he lost his license. People keep giving him money to invest in clubs.
Why is he even allowed to buy clubs? Really?
It's in a free market. Like I said, he is a very, very smooth talker. When I went to interview him, he was brilliant. He was engaging. He was interesting. If he'd said, Gab, write me a check now, and I would have probably written him a check. He did not ask me for money. But if he had, I would have given it to him.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he makes bad bets.
Yeah.
But I think the real story for me is Boavista, the players, the fans having to deal with this nonsense. This is so stupid, but it just won't go away. So we have to deal with it. We made fun of CONMEBOL President Alejandro Dominguez for suggesting that the 2030 World Cup should have 64 participating teams to mark the centenary. A vote is coming soon. Saudi Arabia's sports minister says, well, if you can't have 64 teams in 2030, his country would have no problem hosting 64 in 2034 because most of it is desert, so there's lots of room.
There's lots of room.
I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Saudi and the sports minister, the more people come, the more teams you have. Yeah, if you want to, no problem. I think you could then brag to have hosted the biggest World Cup ever, that kind of stuff. But from a football point of view, we've said it before, it would really means it would be stupid. There would have no sense at all to have that many teams. That means everybody pretty much qualifies in the world. What would be the format for how long? Is it 6-month World Cup or something? Like it just would not work. And for players who play already too much in the season, especially the ones who are going to go to the World Cup, then you add more games. Like I can see why why not? We can do it, no problem. It's more money for them too, but come on.
They would say, well, Jules, but you're only adding one more game, right?
Yeah, true. But
we haven't even had, I think Victor Montoyani, the CONCACAF president, came out against this. Alexander Sheffrin, the UEFA president, came out against this. If you wanted to do something mad for 2030 and say, look, it's special, and I think from Dominguez's perspective, that, they're part of the Centenary World Cup, but they're only getting 3 games, right?
Yeah.
So I can kind of possibly see the argument, but bro, you need to plan this.
Yeah.
You need to plan this well in advance. This is 5 years away, the 2030 World Cup. And the other guy pops up with 2034. Sure, more the merrier. It's completely silly, and it's not going to happen.
A group of Arsenal fans have launched a Visit Tottenham campaign. What is this all about, Gav?
So this draws attention. So obviously, as you know, since 2018, Arsenal have had this somewhat uncomfortable Visit Rwanda sponsorship. The UK government has suspended foreign aid to Rwanda because of what's going on in the Congo and suggestions from the United Nations that the Rwandan government is supporting the rebels and that are causing a lot of strife there, actually. And so there's a lot of people have been against this for a long time, and they've made a video, and there's a billboard outside the stadium basically saying like, guys, do not visit Rwanda. We don't want to have this. And to kind of turn it into humor, they said, visit Tottenham instead. We would rather you visited Tottenham. Obviously, Tottenham, Arsenal's big North London rival. I think it's anything after. So I think there's a year to run on this sponsorship. Personally, I think Arsenal will be very happy when the sponsorship expires and they can get a different sponsor.